What is up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another series preview here on Carbonite Convos. Now, this is a very exciting one because The Mandalorian Season 3 is premiering in just about 24 hours. It has been way too long. Yes, let's go. It's been way too long since we saw our friends. We saw Mando and Grogu in the Book of Boba Fett, but we have not gotten a Mandalorian episode since December of 2021. So it's been about 14 months, and I'm ready.
Man, 14 months is way too long. I'm excited on a personal level just because you and I share a connection with The Mandalorian and the YouTube channel here. So definitely a big presence for us. Definitely a super, super big premiere for us. It's going to be tomorrow night. So I can't wait any longer. Let's dive into, what to kind of expect, what to kind of catch up on, all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But before we get into this video, guys, make sure that if you do like this video, just give us a thumbs up. It does help the channel out a ton. And if you want to see more videos coming from us in the future, consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. But I'm ready to dive in. So I was looking up the synopsis on Disney Plus before this, and it says the journeys of the Mandalorian through the Star Wars galaxy continue. Once a lone bounty hunter, Din Djarin has reunited with Grogu. Off the quote, he reunited with him in the Book of Boba Fett. So if you haven't watched the Book of Boba, you are going to be pretty lost. So you need to go watch that. Back to the quote. Meanwhile, the New Republic struggles to lead the galaxy far away from its dark history. The Mandalorian will cross paths with old allies and make new enemies as he and Grogu continue their journey together. I'm ready. We've said it 3 times already, but I am ready. It's going to be a really fun season.
100%, man. And I think if there's anything we've come to expect from this is, I hate to say it, but just absolute greatness. So my level expectation is through the roof, unfortunately.
Yeah, everybody's.
So everybody's is, and they have to deliver. And the thing is, they're going to. We love it. We love Grogu. We love Din Djarin. I'm here for it.
Period. Exactly. So before we get into season 3, we're just going to do a little conversation about what got us here. So we are not going to recap all of season 1 and 2. We're just going to hit the main points. So we ended season 2 with Alec and I's best reaction ever. I think that was something that was a big blessing for the channel and something that personally was just incredible. Seeing Luke Skywalker arrive in The Mandalorian season 2, chapter 16. That was incredible. That was emotional. It was heartfelt. And he took little Grogu away from Din Djarin to train him in the ways of the Force. So it was, it was pretty intense.
Dude, at the time, when we saw that green lightsaber pop up out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but when we saw it ignite, we're like, yes, go back and watch it. The reaction's awesome. We have the moment that it popped up screenshotted, and it's in my phone right now. I can go back and look at it right now. It's awesome. But there was never really even a connection as far as like where the Mandalorian takes place in the Star Wars universe. Yes, we know the timeline, but like what is its relevancy? Like what aftermath are we looking at here? And for them to do it on the literal highest level they possibly could by mic dropping Luke Skywalker in and ending the season and us shedding absolute tears was a monumentous event.
Oh, 100%. That was incredible. The reaction was fun. The community, I feel like, had never been more positive than that moment. So it was incredible. So moving ahead to the Book of Boba Fett, we see Grogu training with Luke Skywalker. He's given the choice to either stay with Luke to continue his training in the Force and to become a Jedi, or to go with Din and pretty much become a Mandalorian. In Din's final battle with Boba in the season finale of the Book of Boba Fett, we see that Grogu comes in the clutch and does choose to become a Mandalorian with Din. So I think that leads a lot of questions. Like, is he ever going to complete his training? We see how strong he is in the Force. What is he going to do with that?
I don't know, man. And the thing is with Grogu is you can't go wrong either direction. The groups of people, Jedis, Mandalorian, it's a religion. It's all these things, right?
Yeah.
Probably the two biggest within the Star Wars galaxy that are now quote unquote extinct. And for them to drop Grogu in there and for him to have to pick one or the other, you can't go wrong with either, man. Either one is completely badass.
Oh, 100%. And I've actually never really thought of that. That's a really good point, that at this point in time, the Mandalorians,
They're
they're, like
gone
you said, they're
outside of a
understood to be,
few, just like
yeah,
Jedi.
they're extinct. They're gone. They've been wiped away. Mandalore destroyed. Same with the Jedi after Order 66. They were pretty much just hunting down the remaining few. So I like that comparison, that Grogu is choosing between two of the most relevant, but most I don't know the
I
word
don't even
I'm
know.
looking
I
for.
don't
The
devastated. It's
yeah, they like you said, they've
two
been wiped
empires
off
that have
the
fallen,
exactly.
essentially. I don't
Exactly.
want to
No,
use
you're
empire. It's a
100%.
bad way to describe the Jedi, but
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. So it's gonna be really interesting. And speaking of the Empire, we will get into them in a little bit. We do have a couple more bullet points to hit before then. Uh, Continuing with Din Djarin getting the Darksaber from Moff Gideon. We see in his battle with him on Moff Gideon's ship that he does he does acquire the Darksaber, which is going to make a big riff between him and Bo-Katan, because she said, leave Moff Gideon to me. She wants the Darksaber. Whoever
That's
wields
all
it,
she wants.
that's all she wants. Whoever wields it and whoever wins it in battle, they have the right to the throne of Mandalore. Mandalore's in shambles. Like Boba Fett said, the Empire turned it to glass, so there's nothing left. But Bo-Katan really wants that throne because she wants to build it up. That's all she knows. So what role? It's going to be interesting seeing what role that plays in season 3, because like you've said a couple times on the channel, Bo-Katan, although she has been, for lack of a better term, a hero in the Mandalorian, she has a negative past. In the Clone Wars, in
Right.
Star Wars Rebels, she was an antagonist. So it's going to be interesting, because I think a lot of people are going to start to see her true nature. And although she's not an evil person, she just wants to rule her home. She wants to bring Mandalore back to its previous glory. But
Wow,
the way that
I
she's done
genuinely
that,
have goosebumps
I love
talking
it.
about all this. Wow.
And we're going to see that. We're going to see it live.
I
So
can't
it's going to
wait.
be interesting to see what their relationship does, because it's weird. It almost seems like there's I don't want to say romantic, but it could be a romantic
It's
thing, but
love
a
hate,
power
man.
struggle as well.
Right. 100%. It's a love hate. It's a power struggle right there. I love that. I love how Din got the dark saber, man. That I still can't believe he had it. One, and then it was brought back in this, and we saw Moff Gideon for the first time with it. It was
Yes.
absolutely incredible. The scene where one, that whole end scene where he's going after Luke, when we see Din pop up as the hologram, and he says, "Hey, I'm coming to get him back," essentially.
Woo.
And he
Yeah,
comes back, defeats Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon was scared of Luke. Let's not forget that. You pointed that out.
of
But
course.
that was, ooh,
He
baby.
was terrified. And right when Din walks in the room, Moff Gideon in one hand, the Darksaber in the other, the very next shot is of Bo-Katan's face. And that is the face that she did not want to have, because she wanted to fight Moff Gideon for it. I don't think she wants to fight Mando, because they are allies at this
Right.
point, but she wants the Darksaber over everything. So moving ahead into a little bit of where this is going to go in season 3, Din, according to the trailer, wants to go back to Mandalore, quote, to be forgiven of his transgressions, which that was him taking off his helmet and the armor, pretty much saying he's a Mandalorian no more. So he wants to go there to be forgiven. And I assume that in going to Mandalore, he's going to fall in love with this planet and want to bring it back to former glory. So I think that's where him and Bo-Katan are going to have that power struggle.
And it goes hand in hand right there. Like, who deserves to hold the dark saber? Because Bo-Katan could easily bring it back, right? I'm sure she
Yep.
has plenty of leadership abilities. Well, we know that she has leadership abilities, but in the end, the Force always puts the right people into the right spots in the right situation. Who is that going to be? I'm going to guess is Din Djarin. Him and
Let's
Grogu
hope.
are traveling together. one of the strongest Force users that we've been able to see
Yeah,
in the cinematic universe, if you want to call it that. But I'm really excited how you said that power struggle, to see where that's going to turn out, because I think it is going to get heated there, and I think it's going to be bad
definitely.
in a way that's good for us.
Of course, of course. So moving ahead, again, back to the Book of Boba Fett, we see Mando reunited with Paz Vizsla, voiced by Jon Favreau, which is awesome, and the Armorer, who we've been lucky enough and blessed enough to have on our channel. Emily Swallow was an incredible interview, so we always got to throw that in there whenever she comes up. But the Armorer will be back in the Book of Boba Fett. She will be back in Mandalorian season 3. We saw her in the Book of Boba Fett training Din how to use the Darksaber, and we saw him use the Darksaber in his final battle with Boba Fett. So there was a lot to miss in Book of Boba. So again, you really have to go back and watch that, and it's going to be interesting. I saw a question on Twitter when Chapter 17 pops up. When it does the recap, is the recap going to be of just the Mandalorian, or are they going to put the Book of Boba Fett in there too? Because they have to put the Book of Boba in there.
It has to be. It's too
much
too
happened.
relevant. Way too much happened.
There was an entire episode dedicated to Mando, and there was an entire episode where we didn't see Boba. So we
saw Luke
have
Skywalker.
to get that. We did. We saw Luke. We saw Ahsoka, which we will get into them in a little bit as well.
They met. That's unbelievable.
Exactly. But moving ahead to, I know we'll get to it. So going back to the Empire, we've seen this a little bit in season 2 of The Mandalorian and in the trailer for season 3, that there is a growing threat in the Outer Rim. The New Republic Rangers, they have mentioned that to Din now on 2 separate occasions, unless the one in the trailer is just them replaying when they told Din that the first time, but something is growing in the Outer Rim. And what he says is, before you have time, I'm paraphrasing, before you have time to fight it, it's already going to be too big. So there is something growing, and it seems to be the remnants of the Empire that are rising again.
Right.
The way this is going, I definitely think they're looking to tie in the sequel trilogy to The Mandalorian, the Ahsoka series, Book of Boba, its placement in the Star Wars galaxy, which is about 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Eventually we get to the point of the sequel trilogy, and at some point it needs to be connected. So I think this is going to be a big connecting season, and if it's not season 3, it's definitely season 4. We're already seeing some other pieces from the sequel trilogy,
like Babu Frick,
which we were going to get into, but we can do it now. Babu Frick from The Rise of Skywalker. We don't know if it's Babu himself. What a funny name. We don't know if it's Babu or if it is the same species, but we do know there are 2 characters of the same species in season 3. So that's already a connection there. Going back to the rise of either the First Order or the remnants of the Empire, we remember in season 2 where they stumbled upon an Imperial factory that seemed to be a cloning facility based on the what do they call them? Like the vessels or the I don't know what they're called, but there seem to be creatures in these I don't know what they're called, in these glass, what do they call the glass
chambers?
In these chambers, there seem to be creatures in there. And as we could tell from season 1, Dr. Pershing was taking blood samples from Grogu. They want force sensitive blood. Who knows what they're making with it? Maybe they're trying to revive. We already know Palpatine's alive. Maybe they're trying to perfect it. Somehow he returned. Maybe they're trying to perfect his clones. Maybe this in turn is what creates Snoke. But something big is happening in the Outer Rim. And it's going to end up moving into the core worlds. So, I think that is going to be another very important aspect of season 3.
Yeah, with the mistakes Disney's made in the past, I think they're going to try to do something where it does tie it in a much cooler way. The whole line, somehow he returned.
A couple other elements. We already talked about Babu, but I think a really important one is the Mandalorians assemble. We've seen about like at least 5 or 6 different Mandalorians that we have not seen yet. So I don't know where they're coming from, but we are going to see a big clan of Mandalorians throughout the series. So I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah, that poster or whatever it was on Instagram that you showed me had at least like 12 different helmets of the sort. So we know that's just going to be the start.
Yes, and that was next on the list from Empire Magazine's article about The Mandalorian Season 3. There is an image featuring several Mandalorian helmets, and I think the one that stuck out the most is Boba Fett's, because he has not been in any of the trailers, he's not been in any of the teasers, but in this image, his helmet was in it. So we can tell by the signature dent in it that it was his. So it leads us to believe that Boba Fett will return, and following Book of Boba Fett and his connection with Mando, I don't think that's out of the question whatsoever.
Not at all. And we know Tamora Morrison's in for whatever.
Exactly. Other than that, I think we're definitely going to see some more Order 66 flashbacks. We saw a little flashback in one of the trailers, so we're going to see more Order 66, which I always love. But also, I think we're going to get at least another piece of the puzzle of how Grogu got to this point. I don't know if we'll get the full puzzle yet, like who saved him from the temple, but we're getting it piece by piece.
We're getting get more flashbacks. I'm sure.
Yes.
Who knows if Ahsoka's going to be in this? Who knows if Luke's going to be in this? Who knows? So we're bound to get a little bit more information, I'm sure.
Definitely. And you kind of stepped on my toes there, because next we have the questions. And the first two, will Luke Skywalker return? And will Ahsoka Tano return? So I think those are two of the 4 questions that I thought of. I think those were the 2 most important. Will we see Luke and or Ahsoka? Because they were very important in season 2, and they were very important in the Book of Boba Fett in the episode that they were in.
Yeah, and then also, if we learned anything from the Book of Boba Fett, we know they're more than willing to devote entire episodes to outside characters that still impact the story a tremendous amount while that's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Of course. And going off of Ahsoka, we have an Ahsoka series coming out later this year. We don't know exactly when, but it's coming this year. So how will it impact that series? Because I have to imagine that Mando will be in it in some respect, and Grogu. So I think it just comes down to how this is going to play out and how this will lead into the Ahsoka series.
And then that brings up 1,000 questions about the Ahsoka series. We know that's going to deal with the Veil of Force. Is there time travel? Is it they're going to go into alternate dimensions? Like, we have no idea what the future holds for this franchise. And what's really cool about it is they can do whatever they want, especially when it revolves around things like this.
Exactly, man, which is why I think Mandalorian is so important, just not only to the Star Wars community, but to the outside community in general, because the Mandalorian got so many people interested in Star Wars alone, and people started watching the Clone Wars and Rebels and going back and watching the movies. So that's what, at the time, that's what Baby Yoda did. That is what this show did. It brought a ton of people together, and I don't think there's ever been as much positivity in the Star Wars fandom that there has been around the Mandalorian. But not to step on that positivity, I do think a big question, and the final one that I have written down, is, will we get a mention of Gina Carano and Cara Dune? I think it's an important one because the last we saw her was in The Mandalorian, and since then she was fired from Disney. Now, it doesn't matter which side of that you're on, whether you are up in flames that she was fired or whether you are totally in support of her being fired. Whichever side you're on, I think it's just important to the story, like what happens to her. There's no way that her character just doesn't get mentioned whatsoever. She was a very important character, and I think it would just not be right not to address it. So I think it will be addressed. It's just I'm gonna find it very interesting, seeing how they address it.
Yeah, man, that's dicey. We'll find out tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
And if you're watching this, I guess at this point it'll be tonight.
For a lot of people, it's tomorrow, because I would imagine that not a ton of people are waking up at from 12 to 3 a.m. based on which time zone you're in to watch this. So
if you're crazy like we are, you'll be there with us.
Crazy. Yep. Yeah, but that's all I have about season 3, man, unless you have anything else.
Yeah, I'm good too, my man. I think there's nothing but positivity there, excitement there, and we're bound to get something dope.
Definitely 100%. And everybody, we really appreciate you tuning into our Mandalorian season 3 preview. Again, if you did like this video, feel free to give us a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe so you can always be in touch with us. And make sure to come back tomorrow for our chapter 17 reaction. We are back with the Mandalorian reactions, where it all started on our channel back midway through season 2. So we are back reacting to Mandalorian tomorrow night. So make sure to come back for that. But until the next time you are on the channel, like always, may the Force be with you.